Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second session of the Carer Knowledge Exchange Research Incubator 2024, Innovative Carer-Led Approaches in Research, Policy and Practice. It's great to see you all today, and my name is Tish Cronon, and I'm a Senior Manager here at the Institute for Public Policy and Governance at UTS. We are proudly one of the partners, along with Carers New South Wales, and Department of Communities and Justice in the Carer Knowledge Exchange. So we are thrilled to be with you today, delivering this very important session for our symposium. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm joining the session from today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and all of the lands represented by attendees participating this morning. I'd like to extend my respect to elders past and present, and to all First Nations people, including any joining us today. A little bit of housekeeping to those that are just connecting for this session. Please note that today's session will be recorded and shared for on-demand viewing. We'd also like to ask you to keep your camera and your microphone turned off during the presentations, and you're welcome to add questions and comments in the chat throughout the session. In our previous session this morning, we heard from a range of panellists about culturally responsive approaches to supporting carers' wellbeing, adapting service and research responses to carers' varying cultural needs, highlighted the importance of a holistic and person-centred approach to working with carers. Involving carers in the design and delivery of projects and programs is a key way of ensuring this. This session will provide you with a brief taste of a wide range of carer-led initiatives across a range of settings and contexts. We'll hear short presentations from 5 speakers with additional information about their initiatives being shared in the chat. Our aim with this symposium structure is to highlight the many diverse carer-centred initiatives that are going on in Australia and inspire innovation and collaboration. First up, we'll hear from Prudence Granger, the Carer in Residence for the Carer Knowledge Exchange, based here at IPPG. Prudence was a carer for her father, who had early onset Alzheimer's, and through this experience, she gained first-hand insight into the unique challenges faced by carers, which she has been able to channel into advocacy in the dementia space and into her current role with the Carer Knowledge Exchange, which she will tell us more about. Over to you, Prudence.
Thank you, Tish. So as Tish just mentioned, I am the Carer in Residence, and I work at the IPPG at UTS and alongside Carers New South Wales on the Carer Knowledge Exchange. This experience in this role has been a really, really enriching experience for me personally. And I think to begin speaking about this role, I guess I should start from the beginning. So when I was first contacted about this role, I personally did not think I was really qualified. I didn't quite understand what I could bring to the table. But I had some really, really supportive people who had faith in me and my caring experience so far due to the advocacy I'd previously done for Dementia Australia. And so when I stepped into this role, as the carer in residence, I really stepped into my identity as a carer. And I think that was the beginning of a really fruitful relationship within this project, particularly within the team. And the reason this relationship has been fruitful is because it has meant trust has been developed. And the trust that has been developed in my role is due to the fact that I'm working alongside the team every week. I am a part of the project in the end-to-end experience. And what that has meant is a lot of time for reflection, and then that reflection to translate into what we've been doing here in this project. So every step of the way, I've been consulted, I've been worked with, and I've also been given opportunities to explore my own professional development and creative possibility. So I'm really passionate about encouraging more diverse ways to interact with carers in research. And I think this model of the carer in residence is a really, really powerful model. It has the capacity to really have the research be led by first-hand care experience. It also makes sure that the carers are truly valued. And I think that is something that's often a difficult piece to truly make sure happens within a research project, that value piece. How do we value the contribution of our carers who are sharing such important information, and also sharing information that is their life experience. It's what they're living every single day. And so in having a role that is consistent, supportive, and garners trust, you have a more valuable output. And so within this role, I've been able to step beyond what I ever expected it to be. I've had the opportunity to create a podcast, and this podcast is something that I am really, really passionate about, as not only is it highlighting my voice, but it's highlighting a diverse range of carer voices. And essentially, that is the whole point of care research, to highlight a diverse range of carer voices to implement change, to impact policy. And without this role, without this platform, without the trust of my colleagues and UTS and Carers New South Wales, this podcast wouldn't have been possible. And then another thing I've been working on recently, which we rolled out last week, is a masterclass for researchers. So it's an opportunity to share firsthand experience of carers within the research process. So maybe sharing some situations that haven't been the most ideal, as well as sharing situations that have been ideal and how that's kind of worked out to ensure that future care experiences within research are valuable and positive. I think what has allowed these projects to become possible within the Care Knowledge Exchange for me is that I've had this ongoing, on-lasting relationship with the team. And I've also had that value input in my life. So it's given me the space and the financial security to really dive into the potential of the project. I know that it is not always easy to have innovative models within research and different policy, but if we can have this care experience put first in a way that really, really amplifies carers' voices and empowers carers, then the results will be will speak for themselves. What has been a real highlight for me, especially now at this point in my journey with the Care Knowledge Exchange, is the potential future career progressions. What often happens for carers is they lose their careers. They are in a situation where what's in front of them, their loved one, is the priority. And so careers can be put to the side. And I know my career personally was put to the side during my caring role. And to be given this opportunity as the carer in residence, I was able to slowly dip my foot back into the professional world and now have different experiences, supports, and resume attributes that mean I am more desirable as a future employee, and also has opened up a career path that I never knew was something that I could have. So this care and residence role is a role that I think that could be really, really influential to the future of carer research. And if there is the capacity for you to have this lived in model, this model where you have a carer working beside you every single day to develop that trust and to also truly highlight the voice of carers, it could really transform the landscape of your research. And yeah, that's all I have to say today. So if you have any questions for me, please place them in the chat. But yeah, looking forward to hearing to the rest of the presenters today.
Thank you very much, Prudence. That was really, really interesting. And I loved hearing about the journey that you've been on. It's fantastic. Thank you. Our next presenter, Dr. Marianne Weeder, is a research fellow at the Metro South Addiction and Mental Health Services and has extensive research and practice experience from the government and university sectors. Marianne is going to talk about her work with carers in the mental health space. Welcome, Marianne.
Thank you. I just got to share my screen. And I hope I'm sharing the right one. Yeah, looks like it. So hello, everybody. And Prudence, thank you so much for your introduction. It makes my job a lot easier. And I really wanted to thank you for highlighting the importance of carer involvement. And it just reads like this whole presentation is going to be like a reflection on on maybe about 10 or 15 years of work that we've been doing around the carer space for people with mental illness or living with mental health distress. And it really highlights to me, and some of the issues I'll be writing is like, who's asking the question, what's important? And if we don't have carer involvement right from the start, who asked the questions and what the research we're doing, I think a lot of the findings are often not relevant. And I think we probably need to highlight, and before I'd like to introduce my research team as well. I think Rowena is probably I saw her name pop up, so I think she's part of this, she's listening in as well. We are a collaboration between research academics, myself and Robert. Rowena, who is a carer, lived experience working for Wellways. But at the same time, and we're not always very open about this, both myself and Robert often draw on our own experiences as well. But in this particular process, we take on the more of the academics and we work as a pure co-production. So and before I continue on, I'd like to acknowledge the country on which I live and play, and that is Yagara and Turrbal people. So I thought I would start off with this slide, and it's actually quite depressing when I think about it, because I'm not going to go reading through all of it, but basically carers are not included. They don't know how to deal with mental health crisis. They don't know what happens, how to deal with a person who comes out of a hospital. Even yesterday, it was highlighted to me that people who come into the ED with somebody experiencing severe suicidal distress are often asked to take people home. And unfortunately, I wish to say that this quote actually comes from recent information, but it actually comes from 1982. So basically, over the last 50 years, despite a lot of care recognitions, the Act, despite policies and procedures on the ground, we are finding that carers and families are often still not included in mental health care. And so this has been the starting point for a lot of our thinking around how can we best support carers. And the best thing that we've come up with is that family position is very ambiguous and still is very ambiguous. I often call it carers are often a bit in a liminal space, particularly when we look after mental health. They're often conceptualized either as the burdened carer, or they are unfortunately also conceptualized, and even though it is not as open, there's still a lot of stigma attached as causing the illness, that carers act to sustain the mental illness. We talk about concepts such as expressed emotions, rather than saying like people, and that sustains the illness and they contribute to the relapse. but in reality, carers are just people that are doing their best in extraordinary circumstances. And sometimes the expressed emotions is because there's nothing else, and people are not supported in dealing with the situations, which can be very difficult. There's been little attention to the impact of the illness on the family system as a whole. The role as families, as caregivers, is starting to become a little bit more acknowledged, but the impact of care on the person still remains very, very under-researched and unacknowledged. And most simply, carers are often defined as supporting of a person's recovery. That's as simple as it is. Before I go on to talk about the carers' needs, I think I need to contextualize, because I realize that not everybody in this forum actually knows a lot about what's happening in the mental health space. But over the last 20 years, really, and whether or not we've achieve what we set out to achieve, it can still be doubtful. We used to think about mental illness and even the term mental illness as an illness, and we have moved away from using that language to talking about mental illness and distress. And that's really as an acknowledgement that what's going on for the person is far larger than just the body of what's going on. It's really we're needing to start addressing the importance of the social impact of the distress. So people with mental illness, it has far-ranging consequences, not just on the social context, but also on the relational context, on everywhere. And so if we really want to work with a person, it's not simply as addressing the symptoms and let's try to get the symptoms to go away, or what we used to call symptoms. It was this big shift from managing the symptoms to being able to live a meaningful life despite the presence of whatever was going on for the person. And there is a very powerful framework that was developed, which is called the CHIME framework, which really focuses that in order for a person to be able to live a meaningful life, they need connectedness, hope and optimism, identity, meaning in life, and empowerment. So what myself and Robert sorry, I went the wrong way. What we've been really reflecting on, and this was probably about 15 years ago, where we started to think about, but if we think about carers and their support role, they also experience a recovery journey, and the CHIME elements are absolutely critical for the carers as well. But where this liminal space, the duality, the difficulty comes from is that carers have a dual role. So one is providing that recovery-oriented support role, which can be, and the other one is their own recovery journey. And there can be enormous tensions between the two roles. The biggest one I can think of is like we have that concept of dignity of risk. Consumers need to take risk to be able to learn to manage their lives. But if we as a carer, if we let somebody take the risk, that has huge implications on ourselves. So there's enormous tensions between those roles, and it can be very difficult for a carer to actually reconcile them. And there's very little support for carers to actually do that. And in addition to that, this really highlights it's the importance of addressing the social and relational impact. So when somebody experiences mental health distress, we all know we always lash out to the people that often are most dearest and nearest to us, and it can have huge impacts on relationships, and relationships can break down, and it's important to start that process of relational healing. In addition to the CHIME, some earlier research that we did quite recently, we actually started talking to carers, and they talked about the CHIME is all very well and good. It's very optimistic, but if we don't start to address the grief, loss, and trauma that's associated with looking after somebody with mental health distress and caring for somebody with mental health distress, we are missing out on a lot of the carers' experiences. And so we've introduced a concept of CHIME D, where D stands for difficulties. So that's one component. So we started saying that, okay, carers themselves need to experience recovery, and the recovery journey is very important for carers, and we have these elements. However, the models that we've been looking at, there's kind of like a phase-based model at the moment, which talks about, early stages, mid stages, where carers adjust and manage, and they move into purposeful coping. What these models, however, do not take into account that the carer's journey is very much intertwined with that of their loved ones. So we respond to what's happening to a loved one. But for people with a mental illness, they can go through multiple crises of moving between into experience and emerging, re-emerging from intense mental health distress. And this little on the cycle here really shows how people with living mental health distress can move between those, and there are multiple cycles often. And what's happening for the carer is that often they will what we coined a response zone. So when one of these, what's happening with the consumer, the carer will respond. And the intensity, and if we go back to the roles of recovery-oriented support or own recovery, the intensity and kind of balance between the two really depends on what's happening for the person supported. And so sometimes a good example of that is when we support somebody who's extremely distressed, multiple suicidal, or having what we term a psychosis, extreme experience of psychosis, there's very, very little time for own recovery, and hence. But if the person is actually engaging in everyday life, that's when our recovery or our own experiences probably will come to the foreground a bit more, and we have a bit more time and energy to process information. So what we are exploring at the moment is how can we support carers at different times and provide them with the support they actually need, rather than just what we think of often. And I think in the earlier session they talked about psychoeducation is one of the supports that is often used, but sometimes carers actually need more than that. So this is our hope, that when we start looking at how can we best support carers and what are the support needs at different times, probably through these cycles, that we actually have a bit of a more that we move forward. Like, it's not that we go over the same cycle over and over and over again. We actually and that's why I like this image, we actually move somewhere with the cycle. And for some people, it does become easier, and people may adjust and respond rather than react to a period of crisis. But however, if we are not providing the right support at the right time, and kind of have that lack of understanding, for a lot of people, it becomes a lot more difficult, and the trauma and grief loss experience can accumulate. And we really want to avoid that, because that's when carer burnout is. That's when they can't support their families anymore. And this is kind of where our work is going to. I had 7 minutes, so I can't go into a lot of the details. We have started writing a lot of these experiences up, and here are the references. If anybody, there's one that's open access, the other two are not. But if anybody would like to read these papers, I'm happy to provide them to the Carer Incubator, and I think, but you can also just contact myself on this email, and I'd be more than happy to send them to you. And I think that's it in my 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Marianne.
Whirlwind tour.
That was fantastic. I really loved hearing about that liminal space that you talked about. I think that's just really critical. So thank you very much. That was great. Next, we'll hear from Professor Samar Aoun from the University of Western Australia and the Perrin Institute. Professor Aoun is an internationally recognised leader in public health approaches to palliative care, and will be sharing some of her work on person-centred bereavement support through the Compassionate Communities program. Welcome, Professor Aoun.
Thank you, Tish. Can you all see this?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, that's great. Thank you for the opportunity. There's nothing more that I like to present on is how do we get from research to practice and policy. So this is about a program that actually gone that way. And it's all thanks to the carers who, with their lived experience, really knew what to do. So with palliative care, we know it's a basic human right, but really it's not accessible to everyone. It's not accessible everywhere. And yes, in Australia, it is still an aspiration. The latest research we've done in WA, which basically echoed everything that we have in the literature, the pressure points were those 6. And of course, you can see family carer support, people who have answered the survey. And there was a lot there that they haven't been supported with, apart from grief and bereavement support and so on. Of course, people can use the slides later on for the extra information. So even those people towards the end of life, whether they used palliative care or they didn't, they relied mainly on family and friends, as you can see, neighbours and their community. In a national Australian survey we've done, where we asked people who actually supported you towards the end of life, again, in your bereavement phase, again, as you can see at the top, family, friends, even funeral providers came really high in this. So the latest international research, when people are also towards the end of life, only 5% of their day is with a doctor, nurse, or any health professional. 95% are with us, the community, whether spouse, friends, neighbors, community, faith organizations. So what are we doing to those 95% in our life? They have been de-skilled throughout the last few decades because we told them health professionals can do a better job than we were able to do when the community really looked after this. Because death, dying, grief, and loss, the community does it well, and we need to go back to the community reclaiming this. And this is where compassionate communities concept comes from. It's a shift in the culture of care and support. It's inclusive, doesn't matter what disease you have. Committed to system change. This is what I like about it, because we go to conferences, and I'm sure everyone's experience is the same. Year after year, we keep saying this is not working, we need a system change. But who's going to do the system change? It's up to us to do it, not somebody else's. We're all part of the community and we need to do it. And we need to look at the community as an equal partner in delivering that care. And so basically, it's about a whole life approach to care that's based on the assets that we have in our communities. So the benefits of a compassionate community, it builds resilient networks of support around families in need, skills the caring networks, increase neighborhood capacity to care, integrates and build trusting relationships with the health and social care system. It's important that formal and informal networks work well together, which is not the case now. Increasing equity of services and also the financial savings. So to that end, we started the Southwest Compassionate Communities Network in the southwest of Western Australia. And our aim, we're working really solidly towards that. In every person, every family, every community knows what to do when someone is caring, dying, or grieving. These are the first lot of our lovely compassionate connectors. They're all carers with lived experience who answered the call to provide that social and practical support and fill those gaps in the services for people who needed it. So they undertake network mapping and go to the family and ask, who is your network and how will they respond to your needs? And so you've got these circles of cares that the connectors start building around the family in need. And they bring people in the community to fill those needs. So they build the capacity of those communities. They enhance the networks within those circles of care. Now, the caring helpers are the people who are coming to help, whether walking the dog, doing the shopping, collecting prescription. You may think they are little things, but they mean a lot to the dying person and their families supporting them. When we ask those families, where is their need? As you can see, amongst all these domains, the most need was in the social domain, 76.9%. This is where they needed support, even though just to have somebody come and have a cuppa with them, which came quite a lot in that, which really brings us to think these people are really socially isolated in their illnesses, no matter what illness they have. So I can't go through all this, but this is how the connectors help those families gain back that empowerment and ownership. You can do this. Really rallied the community around them to help them. And so we had about half of the patients referred from the health service to the connector program. They were home alone. So basically the connector facilitated external networks to help them, not necessarily related to them. And so there was increase in social connectedness in a really significant way. The actual families said that this program reduced their social isolation big way and got the actual patients to cope better with their daily activities and so on. This is all published, so I've got the reference at the end of this. And so this is a family, this is like a patient in the middle with their family and who was helping them before the intervention. And this is when the family carers, the caring helpers and the connectors came. You could see there was a buzz around this family from community friends, formal networks, and their own connections. So there was a significant decline in the frequency of hospitalization, significant decline in the number of hospital days, significant decline in the ED presentations, significant increased use of outpatient services, which is a lot cheaper than hospital services. And so for a period of 6 months, there would be significant saving for the health service, about $500,000 just in that small population here. So what did the patient and carers said? Always keep her promises. A lot of paid carers really don't care, just filling in the hours. She goes above and beyond and seems to care. She knew when we were a bit overwhelmed, knew when to get involved and when to step back. Necessary for people who don't have strong existing networks, for people who are isolated, it will help open up their world. I can ask her anything, no matter what I talk to her about. She's always had a sensible answer. So pretty amazing. I won't go through what the healthcare team said, but again, they thought it was an easy to implement program. And the connectors themselves, they found a lot of reward in this. In fact, they felt the reward was greater than the effort they put in. So what are we going to do moving forward? As you can see, the rates where people die, rate of hospitalizations is quite high in Australia, in almost every state, and people don't want to die in hospitals, and we will not have enough hospitals for people to die in, or health professionals to support us moving forward when tsunami of baby boomers dying all at the same time in the next 20 years. So we really need to plan forward better than that. Again, the epidemic of social isolation and loneliness, it's quite high in all over Australia in all age groups. And again, this is something that we need to basically see what programs can help in this. Again, what is the solution to the aged care crisis? The reports have really ended up saying at the end, we need increased integration between aged care facilities and the community. Who's going to do that? It's us as the community. Again, with the demographer Bernard Soldes, we have a freight train really hurling towards us, and we really need to avoid this calamity by a change of approach. We can't have, with the aging population, there's no way we can support people in the palliative care system that we have now. So we have seen all the, this is an example of a carer-led solution or a consumer-led solution. So we need more of that. And wherever I presented last year, all over Australia, I was privileged to have the West Australian of the Year last year, and had a lot of invitation to present on models like this one. There was a lot of need around and interest, and therefore what we've done this year, we started Compassionate Communities Australia, weaving compassion and connection across Australia as we live, die, grieve, and care for each other. A few photos from Government House at the launch. And so what are we doing with Compassionate Communities Australia now? It's about supporting communities to reclaim and own their central role in caring, dying, and grieving, actively promoting the role of community-based caregiving networks and our collective ability to engage with serious illness and death, building the capacity of compassionate communities across Australia in their endeavours to enable people to care, die, grieve, supported by that community, and becoming a hub of knowledge and skills for community-led solutions that would lead to social and system change. Please look at the website for Compassionate Communities Australia. And these are the 4 articles that came out of the Compassionate Connectors program. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. That was absolutely fascinating. What a fantastic initiative. And I found it personally very, very interesting. So I hope everybody else did as well. And really thorough research. That's great.
Thank you.
Now I would like to introduce our next presenter. Our next presentation is a pre-record, as the presenter, Bree Penny, was unable to join us live. Bree is a mum of 2 children. Her second child, Dax, was born with congenital cytomegalovirus, otherwise known as CMV. She is also the program manager at Kindred, where she facilitates various workshops and peer groups for families with young children with disability. The team will now share Bree's pre-recorded presentation, and I hope you enjoy it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bree, and I'm the Program Manager of Kindred, an organisation dedicated to supporting parents and carers raising children with disability, developmental delays, and autism in New South Wales. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands and waters throughout Australia on which we're joining from today. I pay respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Kindred is a family-led organisation, which means our staff, board and volunteers have lived family experience of disability and disability parenting. So we get it. We understand the challenges families face and are here to help them navigate complex systems, build confidence and connect with others who understand. Kindred has developed an inspiring community made by families for families. With a focus on peer support, we empower parents and carers to build their knowledge and confidence that will see their families thrive. This is achieved through a range of programs and supports, including peer support groups, workshops, webinars, and the development of fit-for-purpose educational resources and stories from disabled people and family. Receiving a diagnosis, development of disability, developmental delay, or autism for a child can be overwhelming and a life-changing experience for families. At a time of heightened emotion, parents are often flooded with complex medical information but lack the practical guidance and support to navigate their child's new journey. This immediate need is crucial to address, as it sets the trajectory for the family's well-being, empowerment, and their child's future opportunities. The lack of timely and appropriate support has far-reaching consequences for both families and children, which is reflected in the data. For instance, the NDIS Families and Carer Outcomes stated that outcomes related to rights and advocacy for families of children ages 0 to 14 are deteriorating in terms of being able to identify the needs of their child and family and to access services to meet those needs. Parental involvement is crucial in supporting a child's development and overall well-being during the early years. Strong family support empowers children with disability to thrive and reach their full potential. This is why our approach as an organisation is to focus on supporting families of children with disability and really trying to reach families from the point of concern or diagnosis, because we know how important it is to get it right from the start. Lived experience of families is central to the planning and implementation of our work. Last year, 64 parents contributed to our work through consultations, co-design, and sharing their experiences. Our approach to supporting families is multifaceted. Through our peer groups, workshops, webinars, story sharing, and educational resources, we grow the knowledge, skills, and confidence of parents and carers to feel more hopeful for their future and support their child and family to thrive. But today, I want to share a little bit more about our family-led peer support groups and programs and how that approach benefits families raising young children with disability. So we know no journey needs to be travelled alone. There's so much to gain from the experience of others. Peer support is all about connection, respect, understanding, and empowerment between real families walking similar paths. Peer support programs like our online virtual My Time groups allow families to give and receive knowledge, support, shoulders to cry on, and communities to celebrate with no expectations or judgments. Our peer group model is tailored to support the needs of parents and carers of young children based on their extensive feedback. We've recently revamped our peer group program to offer more flexibility and cater to diverse needs. At Kindred, we understand that families have busy schedules. So we offer 4 convenient peer group sessions in the evening and in the daytime throughout the week. With a variety of times and days to choose from, Kindred's peer support program caters to a wide range of families, increasing the chance that they'll find a session that fits their needs and allows them to fully benefit from the program. Our peer groups are inclusive and flexible. We acknowledge that families connect in various ways. Participation is flexible, allowing families to listen to discussions or contribute through the chat option. And this is perfect for those who might be hesitant to speak publicly. This flexibility ensures the program reaches a wide range of families, including those who might feel uncomfortable in a traditional group setting. There is a quote by Melody Statham Cameron: "It's lonely, but when you meet someone who gets it, it's transforming." And this perfectly captures the essence of Kindred's peer support program. Our facilitators, all with lived experience raising a child with disability, foster this transformative experience. Their empathy, knowledge, and facilitation skills ensure families feel understood, supported, and empowered to navigate the challenges they face. The program is accessible, flexible, and private, which makes it accessible to families from all over the country, regardless of their location. This is because the program is delivered online, so families can participate from the comfort of their own homes. This especially benefits families in regional, rural, and remote communities, as well as solo parents. These virtual My Time groups are held every week and are designed to provide a safe space for parents to connect and share. Kindred's peer support program has been shown to have a positive impact on families. Participants report increased confidence in caring for their child with a disability, a deeper understanding of the resources available to them, and a strong sense of connection with others facing similar challenges. Witnessing this firsthand as both a facilitator and as a parent myself, I can say that the shared knowledge, experience, and support within these groups create a truly transformative experience. Kindred also runs an online community group posted in Facebook as a private group. It is a safe space for parents to seek trusted and reliable information from other families. Again, the collective knowledge means that families, especially those in the early in their journey, don't have to reinvent the wheel for every decision and the support is at their fingertips. It's an integral part of our peer support model, as it means families can get support when they need it directly from other families. As an organisation, we moderate the group to ensure that the values of the group are upheld and that any information shared is based on best practice approaches. This is so important so that families know they can trust the information and support they receive in our group. All of our programs and supports are outcome focused. They align with Kindred's theory of change, which seeks to support families in 3 key areas. The first one being creating meaningful connections, the second being developing a positive outlook for the future, and lastly, building families' capacity. 3 years ago, we worked with Social Ventures Australia to develop our theory of change, and it was informed by consultation with over 100 parents and professionals from the sector. We evaluate our programs against our priority outcome areas to ensure our programs are effective and meeting the needs of families. All of our programs and supports can be found on our website, which is www.kindred.org.au. And we encourage families and professionals to follow us on social media or sign up to our mailing list to be kept informed of new events. And I do believe that the link to the mailing list has been shared in the chat. So thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thanks to Bree for that pre-recorded session. What a great contribution and what a fantastic initiative to support carers in raising children with a disability. I mean, what an absolutely fantastic initiative. Thanks so much, Bree, for taking the time to pre-record that. Our final presentation will be from Dr. Zariella Meltzer and Shannon Shedlick. Dr. Meltzer is a research fellow at UNSW, specialising in disability-focused research and research advisory to Siblings Australia. research advisor, I think I should say, to Siblings Australia, a national organisation promoting better support for siblings of children and adults with disability. Dr. Shedlich has been the Chief Executive of Siblings Australia since 2023. Over to you two. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. I'll just share my screen. So thank you very much for having Ariella and me here today. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the lands of the Kaurna people, and Ariella is on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay our respects to their elders past and present, and acknowledge their ongoing connection to land and sea. In 2023, Siblings Australia wanted to examine the critical role that siblings play in delivering the Australian Disability Strategy. Through research undertaken by Ariella and the lived experiences of siblings who interact with Siblings Australia, we knew that there was a strong case to be made. Siblings are demonstrably contributing to the goals of the Australian Disability Strategy. Family is the foundation of society, and the sibling relationship is the longest of most people's lives. For a strong disability system, it is imperative that this relationship is supported. Over to you, Ariella.
Thanks so much, Shannon, and thanks everyone for having us here today, joining this wonderful session. It's been a great set of speakers. As Shannon explained, Siblings Australia completed this work to demonstrate the contributions that siblings make to Australian disability policy. As a sibling-focused organisation, Siblings Australia knows from the lived experience of the siblings we support that siblings contribute to a lot more than is often recognised. So what we did was we created a research-based advocacy document. So in essence, a literature review with a significant policy analysis frame on it. The approach of that review was to map the existing literature on siblings' contributions to the lives of people with disability against the policy priorities of Australia's disability strategy. That mapping accounted for two things. So the first one was we looked at the evidence on what siblings already contribute against the policy priorities in the strategy. So what the evidence shows conclusively siblings are already doing and already contributing to. Can you go back a slide, Shannon?
Yes,
moved on.
Apologies.
The second area that the white paper used in its mapping was that we looked at what the literature suggested siblings might be able to contribute. And we combined that with what we knew from the lived experience of the people we support to create a research-informed vision of what siblings could offer if there was more engagement and education for them. Next slide, please. The findings of that white paper were that siblings are relevant to 18 of the strategy's 30 policy priorities, so over half the priorities in the document, and they are relevant to achieving at least one priority in each of the thematic areas of the strategy, all 7 of those thematic areas. From the literature, we were able to create a link, I'll show the link rather, evidencing that siblings contribute, for example, to increasing the employment of people with disability, to making sure that people with disability have choice about where they live, so that housing element, that they contribute to social inclusion of people with disability and to the protection and promotion of their rights from a rights-based perspective, and that siblings also contribute, for example, to building the capacity of health-related service providers to meet the needs of people with disability. Next slide. The overarching themes of the paper was things that kept coming up when we looked at the evidence. So across the different policy priorities and the literature that we mapped against them, we showed time and time again that siblings have known people with disability throughout their lives, and so they're well placed to contribute to their brothers and sisters' lives and their rights. A really important part of that is that siblings also have a relatively horizontal or egalitarian set of power relations with their siblings. And that often translates over into a very rights-based orientation. They want their brothers and sisters to have the same rights as themselves, and to see those play out in practice on the ground. And they know that when that happens, it's a better life for their whole family as well. The final really critical point that the white paper was able to show was that siblings have a really big capacity to make an impact on the lives of people with disability, but that's both a positive and a negative impact. So they can make many contributions, but also if siblings are uneducated in rights-based approaches, in supported decision-making, in different elements of disability services that can impact people with disability, then they can really make a negative impact as well. And this is why our white paper recommended really trying to engage and educate siblings in those things that are able to back up their useful contributions. And on that note, I'm going to hand back to Shannon, who's going to talk about what that's meant for Siblings Australia's work and how we're implementing some of the ideas and findings of the white paper in practice.
Thanks, Ariella. So we've used this research in the development of programs that we are creating here at Siblings Australia. For example, we had SibPlan, which is a resource which was released earlier this year for adult siblings who are moving into caring roles. And it's really been informed by what this research found and by what we've found in the white paper. And what we've made sure with the creation of SibPlan is it really focuses on how siblings can be partners in supported decision-making, for example. Siblings should be considered critical partners in achieving the goals of the Australian Disability Strategy, and in seeing siblings in this way, it's important to note the contributions they are already making to the priorities, as well as understanding their needs for more engagement with disability professionals and advocates, and for more support in their own right to best achieve and extend the scope of their contributions. With this balance of recognition for what siblings are already contributing and what needs to happen for them to facilitate them to contribute more, siblings can make a maximum contribution to helping achieve the outcomes of the Australian Disability Strategy. There are a range of actions that can be taken to better support siblings to play a critical role in helping to realise these priorities. Our priority is very much on ensuring that siblings are supported to remain engaged in their brothers or sisters with a disability throughout the course of their life, providing the ongoing informal supports on which the disability sector so heavily relies. Thank you very much for having us here today.
Thank you very much, both of you. What a fascinating area of research. Really, really interesting and very important. And I can see there's some several comments and questions already firing up through the chat. So obviously that has resonated with a lot of people. So wish you well with that. And thank you very much. Thank you both very much. Well, what a fascinating range of speakers we've heard from. We have gone over time, so we don't have time for questions, unfortunately. What I'd like to thank you all once again for joining the Carer Knowledge Exchange Research Incubator. And please stay on the link if you would like to end the session with some wellbeing focused guided meditation.